My name is Doris and I am Little Bird Products. Welcome back if you've been here before, and if you haven't been here before, welcome and please subscribe. It really helps me to keep motivated to keep adding to my channel. And what I came on today is to say, again, I didn't get everything done that I wanted to do. For instance, this beautiful hooded robe with vintage chenille. It's cut out and it's ready to sew. It's all serged, but I was waiting until I got this other one done. And that one, let's see, where? And that one is sitting there on my ironing board, all in the pieces of the pattern. And it is going to be kind of a patchwork. Vintage chenille, hooded kimono jacket. It's a robe, whatever you want to call it. It has some chenille fringe on it that I'm going to put on there, and it's kind of cream, pastel, little pinkish, you know, some pieces. I didn't get that finished yet either, but I am going to finish that tomorrow. And I wanted to get a few more bags made, like the one that's sitting next to it there. What I did get finished is I have a tutorial for this little Snappy bag. And a Snappy bag has a little kind of a snappy frame in it, and they're very easy to make, and they have a little box bottom and they're lined, and you can make them bigger if you want, but I kind of like this size. And I put, as a last minute, I put a little clip on there, and I made some for Christmas. They're nice to have, put your credit cards in, change in, put things in it that maybe you just want to keep in the console of the car or in your purse, you know, lipstick and chapstick and hand sanitizer, things that, you know, flop around in the bottom of your bag and you can't get to. Have one of these little Snappy bags, you can put them all in there, and they make really nice gifts, I think. And you can use scraps of material to make them. And I will put a link in the description for where you can buy the little snap pieces that go in there. They're not very expensive. You can find them on Amazon. You can find them on Etsy. Anyway, so I did get a tutorial, and I will show it here, for making one of these. It kind of goes with my little frame purse tutorial that I did last week. I'm probably not going to get much done for the rest of the week because Christmas is coming up. And I made this little bag as a last minute gift for somebody, and I think I'm going to make a couple more just to have spares. I think I'm going to make them for my neighbor ladies. Just a nice little thoughtful something for them, and I think it's important to do that, have something thoughtful. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I appreciate it, and we'll see what happens next year. Oh, my newest thing. I got myself some new glasses. And these are my new guilty pleasure, is buying the frames for these. They're so cute. Look at these here. The glasses have nothing, and then you buy these little magnetic frames, and they're from pair.com, P-A-I-R.com. Anyway, it's just really cute. And they did a good job with my prescription. I've never had progressive lenses before. I always chose to be kind of retro with the little bifocals. I never wanted to, you know, I'm kind of cheap. You know, thrifty. I would say I'm thrifty. And I don't get the progressive lenses because they cost so much more. But with these, they only offered progressive lenses. So I thought, well, what not? Why not? I'm worth it. And I thought I'd try them. And I'm very, very pleased. So they did a good job. They take a little while to come. They do take some insurances, your FSA or whatever that's called. And then they have sales on these. And, you know, it's just... You can't have just one pair. You know, I have like almost every color in the rainbow. They have Christmas ones. And of course, I have one that's, you know, Frida Koala. And I have, you know, her pictures are on them. So anyway, if you're in for some guilty pleasures or gifting for yourself and you decide that, you know, they fit, one size fits everybody. So anyway, go and look at their glasses. Maybe I can get them to sponsor me. Wouldn't that be fun? Anyway, have a happy holiday, and I will see you again, probably, maybe not midweek, but definitely next Sunday, and happy Christmas. Bye. This is going to be a quick little tutorial on how I make my Snappy bags. And here are the materials. Here's the material list, and I will put that in a picture in here too so you can see better. There's 2 for the top of the frame pieces, and these are 8 inches by 3 inches. And you have to, of course, have your little frame, and I'll put a link in the description for that. There's 2 pieces of material. One's the outer piece, one's a liner piece, and these are 8 inches by 10 inches. And you can make it longer than 10 inches if you want. That's just the length. And the 8 inches will be across here, but it gets gathered, so you'll see what that's like. The next step, or the first step, is that we will be taking our liner fabric and our outer fabric, and we will be, for the outer fabric, sewing it there and there down the sides. And the same way with the liner fabric, we'll be sewing it there, and here we'll sew down. We'll leave a hole because that's the one we're going to turn it with, and then sewing it there, right? So we're going to do our sewing, and then I'll bring it back and show you what that looks like once it's folded in half. This is the outer fabric sewn, and this is the liner fabric here, and you can see my little markings here. That's where I'd left it unstitched because we're going to use that for turning later. But now what we're going to do is we're going to take and box these corners in. Some other patterns you've seen, they'll already have, they have a little square where they don't sew this, but I find it easier to do it this way. The corners boxed. This is, I'll show you what I'm doing. Fold it so it's flat, and then I take this and I take it at the 1 inch mark from the very tip to there, and then I mark it just a little bit, because then I'm going to take it to my sewing machine, and I'm just going to sew these like that. Same there, I have all of these. And that, what that does is boxes the corner so it has a little flat bottom. You don't necessarily need to do this, but I like it because it makes the bag, you know, sit down, kind of sit on its own a little bit. And I think it's just kind of a neat little thing. So I'm going to take these to the sewing machine, then I'll bring it back and show you what they look like there. I'm just going to take a little straight stitch across each one of the edges there. The corners boxed in like that. And I just kind of leave them like that. Some people cut it off, snip it off, but I like it because it gives a little more structure to the bag. So I'm going to turn these to the right side out. You can see these are just nice uses of small pieces of scrap fabric. And I'll show you this after I get it turned right side out here. See how that looks? Don't pay attention to that. I just sewed together a couple of scraps for my lining. You see how it makes a nice little boxed corner? I'll turn this one right side out too. And I try to get things down to where they're pretty simple. And then you'll see that. It's like that. Alrighty. And then I take these and put the right sides together, one inside the other. If I can show you in a minute. Okay, just inside there, kind of match the seams up, and is I stitched the end pieces, then I folded them wrong sides together, and then I stitched them closed here, just really carefully because I like to make sure they're going to stay closed. And then I take my little box, that's the outside of my bag, and I'm going to take these toppers, and I'm going to make sure that I keep them a little bit away from the edge because you want to have this open. So I'm going to take it a little bit away from the edge there. And then the same way over here, You'll see it's just a tiny bit away from the edge, and you'll see why after I stitch this together. So what I do is, remember, I'm gonna match this up. I'm gonna put it just slightly away from the edge there. Because the reason I do that this way is, let's see, I need to move this one a little closer like that. There. Oops, I guess you can't see that. Anyway, a little there. I need to make sure this is even over here for where it's going to be. Stitch across. Because I stitched this, whoops, I stitched this around the top of the bag before I sew the lining. You know, I'll put the lining around it so that they're right sides together. And then after I stitch this on the front, because then what'll happen is when I put the lining around it right sides together, right, this will already be stitched here just to keep it together. Then when I turn the bag right side out, all of these will have a finished edge, all of the seams. But there'll be a little open space here, and that's where, when we thread this through, and I'll show you when I thread it through, there'll be no unfinished seams. Everything will be finished. It'll look really, really nice. So I'm gonna go stitch this. I'll come back and show you. It's all sewn around. This is the lining giving birth to the bag. I won't subject you to watching me struggle putting this through there. I made that hole maybe a little bit smaller than what it needed to be. So I'm gonna go off camera and struggle with turning this right side out. Well, I guess it's not too bad. Then I'll bring you back and show you what it looks like. Many hours later. So I've turned the lining. Now I did do one other thing that I didn't tell you, and I didn't show you off camera. I added this little clip here at the side. I just added a little extra piece of the lining fabric, and so this will stick out the side, because I'm going to give this to someone for a gift for Christmas and for their little doggy treats. That way she can hang it on her belt. So now what I need to do is, this is my tiny little hole in the lining that I should have made a little bigger. I'm just going to do a little stitch over that so it closes that hole up, and I'll make sure everything is pressed out. You know, my little corners are all square and everything, and then I will stitch this closed and then shove it back in the bag, and then I'll come back and show you what it looks like, because then I'll have this channel ready to go, and then I will be feeding my little piece of Snappy stuff in through there, and I'll show you how I all turned right side out. And here's my little wrist thing. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to go around and stitch in the ditch, top stitch all the way around here. And then I'll bring you back and I'll show you how I thread this through and what happens with that, and then we'll be finished. Our little frame. Now, one of the things that's most important about these frames, see how they open up? Now, what if you look at this, you notice on this end, I don't know if you can see it or not here, there's a little hole and it's closed. And this end, it's closed. It's just a little. And then with the frames, there's this little bag of these little metal, I don't know what they're called. I'm sure there's a name for them. Anyway, they're just little pieces of metal that, let me get one out of the bag. My fingers aren't working today. Okay, and you don't want to lose these, because I'm sure that they're probably a specialty piece and they're very hard to find. Now, what some people do for these, you'll see other little bag makers where they use pieces of a measuring tape, you know, metal measuring tape, and they cut them and that kind of stuff. And you got to be careful with those. Okay, so you want to make sure that I put these back in there so I don't lose them. Now, what we'll be doing is this, after we slide it through the frame, this will go back together and it will slide through the open end, and then you'll see, if you can see right on here, there's a little metal piece that sticks up. Slide this through there, and then you push that back down and it'll close it in. So I'm going to put that right there so I don't lose it. Famous last words. And I'm going to open this up. And what you do is you'll start from one end and you stick it in there and you stick it in here in the channel, because that channel is pretty nice and wide with this pattern. And you slide it through, and you'll notice that with this pattern and the way I make it, see how it only goes to there? Well, what you'll be doing is, as you stick it through, you'll be making it kind of gathered, and then it'll come out the other end, and then you hold it out, and you want to pinch it back together so that you can get that little metal piece in there. And I am not going to let you, well, maybe I'll just keep you on camera and decide how much of this I'm going to cut out. See me struggling getting this through the ends. It's not really that difficult, it's just me. Because see how you have to gather it up to get it through the other end? Because of the way this material is, it gets caught up a little bit inside. If you use smoother material than I did, it'll go through there a little easier. Let's see, pinch it out so that you kind of move it together. You can see it out the other end. And what I'll do is I will clamp that back, see, so that I can come back here and feed this through this other channel here and kind of feed it along. And it really isn't that difficult to do. It's me. I make it more difficult. Not as handy with some things. Oh, and I did put my label on the front. And if I'd thought of it sooner, I would have put it on a little easier. That little thing is stuck in there. See, I'm caught up on something inside there. Note to self, use smoother fabric on the inside of this channel. Makes it easier to get through. There we go. There we go. See how that, it's right there. And it sticks right through, it sticks down in there, and then it's gone through both ends, so it's in there. And now we'll take and push that down. We'll push this closed. You'll see on that end there, I pushed that down so that it covers the end of where I pushed that in. I don't know if you can see that or not. See that in there? So that both ends are covered. It's just a little bit. It just keeps that little thing that I put in there from sliding out. Now, make sure I've got my little bag gathered the right way. And there we are. There's our little bag. Isn't that cute? I think that is so cute. And you can put a little label across the front, however you choose to do that. I think that's just a cute little snappy bag. It's got a little zipper. And then what happens is they can just kind of push on the end. See? Like that. And I would recommend that you use a little thinner fabric than what I did at the top because it just makes it easier to gather. Of course, mine is home decor fabric, and so this is a little heavier at the top. Just made it more difficult for me to slide that through. But I just think it makes just a cute little bag and a perfect little gift. And like I said, you can make it longer. You know, you use the box corners, and it just makes it a little bigger bag. I think that's pretty cute. So this is going to be a little Christmas gift for somebody who's not expecting to get anything, but she's helped me a lot with a lot of things, and so I think she'll enjoy it. She likes my little handmade things, and it's not a terribly difficult project. As I said, I'll put and these aren't terribly expensive. So if you have some scraps of fabric, a little time on your hands, and you're up for trying it, it's a fun project, doesn't take that long to do. And happy sewing. Great little way to use up your scraps. Anyway, enjoy and have a great rest of the week and a happy holiday.